Well, hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I am Kisma, and today we're going to talk about when someone hurts you. What to do about that. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Well, hello there, Nick.
Hey, Kisma.
What's going on with you?
Big topic today, apparently.
It is a big topic.
Yeah.
I think.
What's going on with me? Lots of things are happening.
Lots of things. What kind of things?
Well, there's just a flurry of things with energy mastery stuff and getting all the pieces in order. And one of the things that I'm learning, it's very interesting, is I'm learning. I was about to say trying to learn, but I'm actually in the process of learning how to actually be a little bit more gentle with myself.
Oh, look at you, self-care master.
I'm trying. I definitely wouldn't call myself a master at this point, but what I'm finding is that it is definitely a new level of activity, of just stuff to get done. Like there are just things and stuff that needs to get done, and I'm not able to do it all in one day.
Oh, so you are human after all. Well, what do you know? Okay.
So I have this expectation that so much more is going to happen, and and you just start chunking through it, and so there's I think an external or an internal pressure I start to put on myself sometimes, and so I'm definitely deciding to not do that. I'm going to do that a little bit differently.
Choose wisely, my dear.
It adds up fast, you know. It really adds up fast. But so many really, really exciting things. That's just something I'm working on personally.
That's cool.
But really, really exciting things happening. So
that's great.
Yeah, and so we're talking about when people hurt you.
Yeah, this is not going to be a hugely long podcast, everyone, but it's been coming up. I know certainly with some of my students reaching out, people just like, well, so-and-so hurt me. I'm really upset. I'm emotionally drained. I hear this one a lot. I'm emotionally drained because something didn't go as they really wanted it to. And the perceived issue is that from another person, they were hurt. And so I thought this is a really great topic to address because I'm pretty sure all of us have been hurt by someone else or several other people.
I'm not really sure what emotionally drained means. Can you tell me about that?
I would imagine that emotionally drained means just like, sort of everything's wiped out. I think when someone's emotionally drained, they get tired physically, they're tired mentally. Perhaps they've had a good cry, which there's nothing wrong with that, but just sort of at a loss for understanding.
Okay. I think I kind of understand that. All right. Yeah. Interesting. Big topic. I mean, there's a lot of different facets to it. I think the first one is really why this is important.
It's very important.
Why this is important to be able to handle this. For two reasons, I think. Number one is because human beings are human beings.
Yes.
And that human beings will disappoint you in the sense that they will not meet your expectations. Sooner or later, somebody's going to do that. And often it can really hurt. So there's certainly that part of it. And then there's, just when people be people as well, like as people will do, and they say something hurtful.
Right.
Or do something hurtful, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and then we wind up taking the hit on that. The reason, in my opinion, why this is so important is because, number one, again, on a couple different layers, is number one is like energetically. We're on a podcast right now, so you can't really see this, but if you were to scan, your field, like if you were to just look at your energy when you're like happy, normal, like you're just your happy, shiny self, versus when you get into disappointment
Yes.
or blame
Or anger.
right, is your field's going to shrink. And so that's what that is when you feel like your world is closing in on you. That's actually a pretty accurate way of describing all of your stuff starting to collapse in.
That's a really good point. So that depletion of energy will start in the emotional and mental energy bodies, and then it will get into the physical energy bodies. And then it'll affect things like your happiness, your money, your health, all sorts of things. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, I want to say on the flip side of that, it's important to recognize when you feel upset. This is not about stuffing things down. This is not about happy. This is not about saying you shouldn't feel a certain way. But the question to ask ourselves is, how long do we want to choose to feel a certain way?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And for me, this is always the pivot point. The stronger one's intellect, through all the Vedanta teachings that we've talked about, that intellect is that muscle that discerns and is able to guide the mind, the emotions, to a really clear place. And when our intellect is strong enough to at least ask the question, how long do I want to feel this way? We have such a greater opportunity of a pivot, a greater opportunity to say, wait a minute. All right, this person may have been kind of a jerk, but I have a really strong feeling it has very little to do with me and probably a lot to do with that person.
Yeah. And it's not like you don't have emotions. Right? You're not trying to be an automaton who's just like,
please don't.
Like, don't do that. That's closing off a really important part of our humanity. But it is to say that there's a way in and out of that in a much more fluid way.
Yes.
With a lot more ease that isn't so dramatic or draining. And it lets you just be a human being. Like, human beings get sad,
Right.
They get hurt, they get like this normal human emotions. We are allowed to have those. Here's your permission slip right now. It's totally okay to have that. But what's not okay, and I'm going to go so far as to say not okay, it's not okay to dwell on that and to get stuck on it. And I'll tell you exactly why. Why is because then you basically spread that disease to everybody in your life.
Yeah. That's very true. I mean, think about the people. I know we all know someone who's that negative Nelly, and they come into the office or they come in for a visit, and you're just like, oh, I can't handle it because it feels that heavy. So when we stay stuck in whatever emotional injury is there and we're not elevating out of it, we kind of spread that to the people around us.
Yeah, that's very true.
And plus, it just doesn't feel good to be stuck in that emotion of receiving what someone's throwing at us. So I'm a big believer. It's certainly something that I teach with my clients and students. Is like, if you're having a reaction to something, there's a seed of that in you. That doesn't mean to say the person that's perhaps treated you in an unkind way is right. No way. Like, this is not to say that's okay. But the thing to look at is when something percolates in us, what is that? And what are the steps that you can do to solve it, to resolve it, to shake it off? Because, life is like super short. We always say that. It's like a whisper. And every moment that we give away to someone else's negativity or someone else's anger or hurt, it's a moment lost.
Yeah. You're talking about the step-by-steps. I want to get into the preemptive, actually, of that.
Okay, great.
So it's like setting yourself up for success.
Right.
And in my mind, it has to do with expectations. Some people say, like, don't have any expectations. And I think that's okay. Like, that's nice. Like, I get that. But as far as having functional relationships, there are some expectations around that. And it's really about creating realistic expectations or expectations based on, the reality of who that human being is. So to that end, it's really on you, the individual, to assess that other person really clearly and to create a clear expectation. This person is always late. So if I'm getting bummed out because they're late, that's actually not their fault.
Yeah, right.
I know that might sound weird, but it's not their fault. Like it's their fault that they're late, whatever they're doing to choose that. But if I'm getting bummed out about that, that's actually my fault.
Because they're always late.
Because I already know that they're already late, right? Yeah. So it's the same way about, you said about the gloomy person. That's not to say that you can't love that person, and you may very well want to take that person in limited doses. But if you're like expecting that person to just suddenly be like the happy person,
right,
you're setting them up for, to feel like it's not okay to be who they are and to feel uncomfortable around that. And you're also setting yourself up for disappointment.
Right.
So don't do that. Because it's not helpful.
Exactly.
So that's what I consider really setting myself up for success. Now, having created that expectation, there's a little part in the back of my mind that says, this is a human being. And human beings are capable of just about anything.
True.
You never know what is going on, and you never know. I'm just going to go off on this for just a second. Like, when you think you know somebody, and it's hard to know sometimes what's really going on behind the scenes.
This is correct. Yes.
Just like all of a sudden you've got this friend that you're talking to and everything like this. I don't know. I know guys do this. I don't know if women do this as much, but my guy friends, and then, we're just having like a normal conversation, and then it comes out like this, like really earth shattering thing. And it's like, whoa, dude, like, we've been hanging out for a couple days, like, and you didn't want to tell me this. This has been going on for a while. And it's just really interesting. And then you're like, wow. And you never know when that one more thing is just really going to send somebody into their breaking point.
Yeah.
And they can really surprise you. So in the back of my mind is always this understanding that this is a human being, and no matter what expectations I have, they can always surprise you.
And how we observe others changes what we're observing. I mean, this is like that quantum law, like how you observe something changes the observed. The observer changes the observed. So without holding like this really firm expectation, I like to think of it as like potentiality. Oh, well, perhaps today Betty's going to be on time, but not be attached to the outcome.
That's a really good way to put that.
Right,
yeah,
let's give her all the
that.
chance, but not be attached.
Yeah, I really like that, of holding that space of possibility, but not being attached to the outcome of that. They may or may not step into that.
Right. Now, I want to talk about when someone does something seemingly so off the charts. I mean, I know I've lived through this recently, and it's like really interesting. And what I've come to realize is that whenever there's more than one human, these humans, hashtag humans, whenever there's more than one human, there's more than one perception. There's more than one heart. There's more than one mind. And so two humans will rarely see exactly the same. And so when something goes sour, or when someone's doing something that you're like, how could they do that? Like, they seemingly have it all together. How could they? There's just another layer in them that hasn't been resolved.
Yeah, and you never know where that's going to come from, and where that's going to show up.
And you don't know what triggers it and why it's happening now. And oftentimes, I'm a firm believer of this too, when you glance back in the relationship or the friendship or the partnership, whatever it is, there were flags. There were little red flags, not meaning that you should have given up, but there were nuances of the personality that would show, say, maybe a sense of selfishness, or some of the need to be right, or a blame, or whatever. Just as it occurs in pretty much all of us in some level, it'll pop up now and then. And so then you can sort of thread it and be like, all right, there is this energy, there's this perspective, and then something goes wonky and it can really light up in a big way. And then if we're not careful, we take that on, and we take it personally, and then it really crystallizes, and like Nick said, before you know it, we're stuck.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point about the little red flags. To me, like, there's not a lot of those that are like truly like non-starters, red flag, right. You're done. No. It's more a matter of just observing that and being like, oh, okay.
You'd be pretty much out in the desert by yourself.
I mean, you would. Yeah. If you have too many of those, you're definitely going to be a lonely person.
No, but if you measure your friendships by all the red flags, like, you're going to be in the desert by yourself.
Yeah. Like, what are you saying? Wait a second.
Carry on.
Okay. We're coming back to that. What I mean by that is just that, they're just information. It's just taking in information, and we all have personality flaws. We all have character flaws. And so when those little red flags come up, it's like, ooh, interesting. I don't personally tend to get into all the whys and wherefores to try and figure out that human being unless I'm working with that person individually. And even then, my focus is more on solutions. All right, great. This is what's showing up. I'm not really going to go digging into like all the whys because it's not going to give you the information that you need to move forward.
Right.
So what I've found to be most important when those things start to show up or when they start to flare or when you can kind of see things start to go sideways is solution oriented. All right, is like, okay, rather than me focusing on the problem of how they're behaving, what they're saying, the things that they're not doing that I think they're supposed to be doing, and all in judging all over that, it's really shifting that focus to like, okay, great. Kind of like you said with the possibility of like, okay, how can I, or what can I do to right the ship? What can I do to set this straight and really help things move in a positive direction?
I love that. And within integrity, this isn't about rolling over and letting someone steamroll you. It's not that at all. But a really masterful person and masterful teacher will look at every way into a conversation or a relationship to find that point of interest or healing or whatever it is. And I think, too, often if we can take that breath, if that intellect is front and center and we pause, very likely the question can be like, does this person feel heard? Does this person feel respected? Asking a few questions, you'll be like, oh yeah, maybe this human felt disrespected. Maybe this human didn't feel heard. Doesn't mean what they're doing is right in your book, but it gives a sense of understanding so one doesn't have to take it all personally.
Right. That is helpful. That is helpful because it can help you guide, the direction that you take with that
exactly
when you're navigating through. Yeah, it's important to a degree.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But as far as like, it's from their childhood and like, no.
Yeah, we don't want to go there.
I'm definitely not getting into that. Like, I want to know like what's next. Like, what do we do now?
That's a great, just that what's next without a ton of judgment and resentment and anger. What's next?
Yeah. Because I found, kind of hearkening.
Is that a word? Don't angels? No, they herald.
Yeah. No, hearkening. I think I've been watching too much Poldark. I think it hearkened back.
All right, my lord.
Right? Yes, my lady. It's great. Just quick aside note with that. Like, what did we say? It's like, if it's in Victorian English, it's like it takes some of the trash out of the soap.
Oh yeah. We're watching Poldark. Maybe we could do a whole podcast in Old English. I don't think I could pull it.
I don't think we could do it.
We do have to get home and walk the hound pretty soon, though. So get to your point.
The hound will require attention. What I was going to say is hearkening back to the beginning of the podcast where I said like this pressure I put on myself is I think like a lot of times I'm sure I'm not alone in this. Is that it's really easy to pressurize ourselves. And if you're pressurizing yourself in that way, you're likely putting that kind of pressure on somebody else, right? And so in a relational dynamic, what that does is just it makes it harder for anything to move.
Yes.
So everything starts to get stuck, and then what happens then is everybody just locks into their own need to be right. You're justified in your anger, you're justified in your hurt, and you're like, I have a right to feel this way. You're right. You might very well be right in that you have a right to feel that way. What are you going to do about it? That's nice that you have a right to feel that way.
That's a great question.
But what are you going to do about it? And how are you going to move this forward in a really positive way so that everybody can win?
Yeah.
Because that's the moment when everybody locks into their need to be right, that it takes on an adversarial stance.
This is when families break apart. This is when partnerships break apart. Yeah.
Marriages, business partnerships. This is when relationships break, is when it's me versus you and I'm going to win.
Now, let me ask something, because I think this is important too. I know our listeners have been following us and you're all in tune with just moving forward from a higher mindset, higher aspect. What if the person they are dealing with, so to speak, is not interested in solving or resolving or making it a win for everyone?
That's a good question.
It is.
In my mind, it's my job to enroll that person in a solution. So they may not be interested in that, and that might be very accurate. But if that person is not interested in a solution, then everybody has a problem.
Yes.
So it really becomes about enrolling that person in a solution, which is generally going to deal with bringing it back to what they're going to get out of it.
Yeah, that's true. And then I would say there are people that when they refuse to be enrolled in a solution, or it comes to that point of no return, sometimes people just move out of our life.
Yeah, that's
but
okay.
The key is to let it go, because I know that anyone who's harbored resentment or anger, it is just so depleting. And again, it's never to say it's okay what someone does in terms of hurting you, but letting it go is the freedom. Forgiveness, Swamiji always talked about this. Forgiveness is for you. Forgiveness isn't for the person that you're forgiving. It's a release of that energy that can really hold one back and deplete the powerful forces within.
Totally. I would take that one step further, actually, and say it's for you first. But when you forgive energetically, you do release that person as well.
Yeah.
But it is for you first, and primarily for you, because you're basically poisoning yourself.
Exactly.
So, navigating that can be a little tricky, but that's where layers upon layers, like if you have been taking crap in a relationship for a long time and letting that build up, and then finally it blows or ends or severs or whatever that becomes, you're going to have some layers to deal with. And the reason that you have those layers is because you didn't address them before.
Yeah.
And that's just, I'm not blaming or saying that's even necessarily a bad thing. But what I am saying is that's a choice, and that choice has a consequence, which means that there will be layers. I know that I've had in my life some people who have, I've really admired and respected in many ways, and who have meant a great deal to me, who did some things that were just I'm definitely not going to name names, but did things that were entirely unacceptable. And my own disillusionment was really painful.
Okay.
Now in the 2020 era, the hindsight's being 2020, I look back and it's like red flag, red flag, red flag.
Yeah.
Yep, totally saw it. Every step of the way, I saw them do this with other relationships, and now it's happening with me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then the key to that is, if that's who they are, and we expect them to be different, we'll be disappointed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It really, I like to look at it this way. Taking the space of rising above and beyond. So when we dig our heels in and there's a stubbornness or a need to be right, that I'm going to fight this out and I'm right and they're wrong, it's not going to feel great. And you might win a battle, but the long distance is going to feel very depleting. When we're like, we have the conversations we need to have, we feel what we are required to feel, and we make a choice to rise above it and go beyond it, I feel like that's where the freedom is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with it. It's setting yourself free, basically.
Right, exactly.
Is really what that's about. And there does come a point in time where you're like, no, thank you. Like, we're done now.
Yeah,
we're done.
That comes.
And you can do that. This is the thing I think that is confusing to a lot of people, or there's a misunderstanding that it has to be angry, or it has to be, whatever. There has to be some break about it. You can just be done. And that's totally okay. You can just be done with family members.
Yeah,
you totally can. You can just be done with your partner. In your significant other, that's actually okay. It's okay to just be done and to move on.
Am I getting like a Dear Kisma letter tonight?
No, you're not.
I know, you're sounding like really like, let's be done with it all, people.
No, I'm just saying that there does come a point in time when you just decide, yeah, I'm done. Like this is not where I want to be going, and this is not what's really going to work for me in my life, but I don't need to be angry about it.
Well,
and I don't
that's
need
the
to be,
key.
I don't have to have all this stuff around it. I can just be done, and do that in a really graceful way.
It's that neutral place. We keep coming back to that again and again, that neutral place of not a severe charge, not hatred, not anger, not resentment, but, there might be a completion. or there might not be a completion. But the key is to come to that neutrality and the ability to rise above and beyond it. So one doesn't continue to just stir that pot of just upset and agitation and suffering. And some people end up really thriving on that. They need the highs and the lows of all of the ups and downs, and it just isn't healthy.
Yeah, addicted to the drama.
Yeah, addicted to the drama and the makeup and the fights and the whatever.
Oh, yeah, the whole cycle of it. Now, I want to kind of take this to another level. When this has been that was an example for me. Again, not naming the name. Not really important though, actually. But when somebody is really significant in your life, or really represents something to you. Now, one of the areas that I see this in is and all kinds of things that I think would kind of almost borderline on abuse. Is in spiritual teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Where they misuse the teachings and make it, really, really miss some of the key pieces where they take, responsibility. That's you're 100% responsible for your results. That's true. But then somebody criticizes them and they use that same teaching to say, well, no, this is just all about you. Look at yourself and look what's coming up. And that's
spiritual pride, spiritual delusion,
the self-delusion. Yeah. That is inappropriate.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really hurtful. And so what, I guess where I want to bring this to is what happens when somebody who's really significant to you in that way, whether it be a spiritual teacher or even a parent or something like that, really falls from that pedestal. What do you do?
I think it's painful, but for me, what I've seen and learned through many, many things is objectivity is key, and having a sense of compassion and knowing that, it sounds a little lofty, but through each and every one of us, there is that cord of love. There's that interconnectedness. And if there's nothing else that's salvageable, there is that. And it's just kind of like an internal release and blessing, and always an appreciation for what someone has taught you or shared with you. But if they've crossed the line and there's been a sense of misuse of a spiritual teaching or coaching or whatever, it's time, it's over. But also to know that, quite frankly, there's something within them that they're struggling with. So compassion can really help one stay objective.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The compassion for that as a human being, I think, because that's one of the times where we really put the pressure on that person to be something other than a human being.
Right.
They should be above this.
Yeah, unless one is self-realized, they've got their human condition personality. But for me, through this conversation, the two words that I know will help everyone who's been hurt, forgiveness and compassion. Right. And compassion too, when you look at someone and you see what they've done in the agitation and the hell they put themselves through and others, you can only imagine what's going on in their own mind.
Well, yeah, and then if you don't see the external representation of that, of some kind of remorse or something, then it appears to you that they think everything's okay.
Trust me, they're struggling.
Whole nother layer of judgment there.
Right.
And sooner or later that, it's a law, that will come around. And it's not like karma's going to get you, and you're looking out for that because really, who would wish that on anybody? No. Do you really want to be wishing that on somebody?
Their karma's not our business.
Exactly, right? So that's where you get the opportunity to just stay out of it. And I love what you said about taking what was really valuable from that, because that's a time when it's so easy to dump on all of the really beautiful things that came from that relationship, whether it's any kind of relationship. Like that could be a romantic relationship that went through a bad breakup. It could be a business relationship. It could, where you made a ton of money together and then the relationship broke, or who knows what. But it's
artists, how many singers have broken up and then hate each other?
Oh my gosh, great bands break up. It's just not cool. And then, but really taking what was beautiful from that and taking, what you can learn from the experience so that you get your gems from it and moving on in a really beautiful way. I think that's so important to honor and respect all of the treasures that you got through that relationship. And that makes it so much easier to move forward in a really positive way.
Absolutely. And to throw out the good with the not good is just wasteful, and it's sad. So always see that, what was positive, what you learned, what you got, and treasure that.
And what you can do moving forward.
Completely.
It always takes two.
It always takes two. And I think the wrap up with this is, like everything, it comes back to our own work, right? Again, it's like, whoa, okay, what in me attracted that? That person yelling at me, like, whoa, okay. And just to kind of do that inward gaze, resolve whatever is going on inside of us, keep our side of the track clean. What's their gig is their gig. What's our gig is our gig. And having that sense of release, not staying stuck, forgiveness, compassion, but also one's strength in their own integrity, to me, is highly important.
Yeah. Knowing what you know.
Right.
Because again, it is easy to, especially as relationships get closer into that inner circle where there's a lot of entanglement, where you start to really second guess yourself.
Yeah.
And certainly I've done that. You see the red flags, you see the things happening, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
And I see you giving me that look. She gives me this look because she's generally a little bit more intuitive about those things. She calls them out a little sooner than I do, and she's like, oh, look out. And I'm like, oh no, it's all fine. And then soon enough, boom. Yeah.
One of those things.
I appreciate that's one of the things I love about you.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, just to wrap up, what I want to suggest is taking the high road is masterful. Rising above and beyond is masterful. And we're here to master our lives. We're here to master being human. It doesn't mean you say it's okay. It doesn't mean you say it's right. But certainly, if you don't want to live with that, just let it go.
Yeah. One of the kind of down and dirty tactics that I would give for people is don't get caught in the weeds with them.
Yes.
When somebody starts to take it down into the weeds of you did this and you did that, that is not going to be really a valuable conversation.
Right.
Like 9 times out of 10, or I would say 99 times out of 100, it's not going to be really worthwhile. Mm-hmm. You want to get back to, wait a second, what do we really want to have happen here?
Exactly.
And start from that place so that now you're back into the solution. Okay, Great. How can we create that together? Rather than the he said, she said, and this and that. That's not going to help anybody.
Right. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, love to hear from you guys. If you have a story, if you have a challenge, post in the comments below in the show notes. And just know that, there is that light at the end of the tunnel, and you can get there pretty much as quickly as you choose.
That's exciting.
It is exciting.
It really is exciting. Yeah. Lots of good stuff coming.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Namaste.
Peace.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.